I'm Margaret Chen, 68 years old. When my son died in a car accident, his wife Sarah immediately tried to take everything. My grandson, the life insurance, even my late son's ashes. She told the courts I was too old and unstable to have custody rights. She blocked me from the funeral. She claimed I was mentally incompetent. What Sarah didn't know was that I'm a retired family court judge with 35 years of experience, and I'd been quietly documenting her abuse of my son for 2 years. This is how I took everything from her and got custody of my grandson. Subscribe now. Hit that bell for more revenge stories. My name is Margaret Chen. I'm 68 years old, and 2 years ago, my only son David died in a car accident at 42. He left behind his wife Sarah and my grandson Lucas, who was 8 years old at the time. David's marriage to Sarah had been troubled for years. She was 15 years younger than him, never worked, spent money constantly, and I suspected she was having affairs. David confided in me that he wanted a divorce but was afraid Sarah would take Lucas away from him. I'm a retired family court judge. I spent 35 years presiding over custody cases, divorces, and family disputes. I know how the system works. I know what evidence matters, and I had been quietly documenting everything about Sarah's behavior for 2 years before David died. I kept detailed notes every time David told me about Sarah's spending, her neglect of Lucas, her verbal abuse. I saved text messages where David expressed concerns about her parenting. I documented the times Lucas came to my house with bruises that Sarah claimed were from playing rough, but looked suspicious. I even hired a private investigator who confirmed Sarah was having an affair with her personal trainer. When David died, I was devastated. My only child was gone. But I still had Lucas, and I was determined to protect him from Sarah. The day after David's funeral, which Sarah had organized without consulting me and where she refused to let me speak, Sarah came to my house with a lawyer. Margaret, I'm Lucas's mother and legal guardian now. David's life insurance policy of $800,000 comes to me. The house is mine. Everything is mine. I've decided you're too old and emotionally unstable to have unsupervised visits with Lucas. You can see him once a month for 2 hours at a supervised facility. I was shocked. Sarah, I'm his grandmother. David would want me in Lucas's life. David's dead. I make the decisions now. Lucas barely knows you anyway. You're just an old woman who can't keep up with a 10-year-old. Sign this agreement limiting your custody rights, or I'll petition the court to terminate your visitation completely. Sarah's lawyer handed me papers that would legally restrict me to minimal supervised visits with my own grandson. Sarah was smiling. She thought she'd won. I need time to review these documents, I said calmly. You have 48 hours. After that, I file a restraining order claiming you're harassing us. The moment Sarah left, I called my attorney, Robert Harrison, who had been my colleague when I was a judge. Robert, Sarah is trying to cut me out of Lucas's life completely. I need emergency custody. Margaret, grandparent custody cases are extremely difficult to win. Courts favor biological parents. I know. I was a family court judge for 35 years, but I have evidence Sarah is an unfit mother. I've been documenting everything for 2 years. I showed Robert everything. The abuse documentation, David's text messages expressing fear about Sarah's parenting, the private investigator's report about her affair, photos of Lucas's suspicious bruises, records showing Sarah spending David's money recklessly while Lucas wore worn-out shoes and clothes. Robert's eyes widened. Margaret, this is a complete case file. You built this like a prosecutor. I was waiting for David to file for divorce. Now I'm filing for emergency custody. We filed an emergency petition the next morning, citing Sarah's neglect, suspected abuse, infidelity during marriage, financial irresponsibility, and attempts to alienate Lucas from his grandmother immediately after his father's death. The judge granted a temporary hearing within a week. Sarah showed up with her expensive lawyer, completely confident. Your Honor, Sarah's lawyer began, Mrs. Chen is a grieving elderly woman who is making false accusations against my client because she cannot accept her son's death. Mrs. Chen has no legal standing for custody. My client is Lucas's biological mother. Then Robert stood up. Your Honor, Mrs. Chen is not just a grieving grandmother. She's a retired family court judge with 35 years of experience. She knows exactly what evidence is required in custody cases, and she has been documenting Sarah's unfitness as a mother for 2 years. Robert presented everything. Text messages where David begged me to help him protect Lucas from Sarah's neglect. Photos of bruises on Lucas that Sarah couldn't explain. Bank records showing Sarah spent $40,000 on clothes and vacations, while Lucas needed new shoes. The private investigator's report with photos of Sarah's affair. Testimony from Lucas's teachers that he often came to school hungry because Sarah forgot to make him lunch. The judge's expression changed from skepticism to concern as the evidence piled up. Your Honor, I testified, I spent 35 years protecting children in family court. My son was afraid to divorce his wife because he feared losing custody of Lucas. He asked me to document everything in case he needed it for divorce proceedings. Now David is dead, and I'm using this evidence to protect my grandson the way my son wanted me to. Sarah's lawyer tried to object. This evidence is hearsay. David isn't here to confirm any of this. These are contemporaneous text messages, photos, financial records, and third-party investigator reports, Robert countered. This isn't hearsay. This is documented evidence of neglect and abuse. The judge ordered an immediate investigation by Child Protective Services. They interviewed Lucas, who broke down crying and said his mother ignored him, that strange men came to the house, that she yelled at him constantly and blamed him for his father's death. CPS also discovered that Sarah had already started spending David's life insurance money. $50,000 gone in 6 weeks on designer clothes, a new car, and a vacation to Hawaii with her boyfriend while Lucas stayed with a neighbor. 3 weeks later, the judge ruled in my favor. I was granted temporary full custody of Lucas. Sarah was allowed supervised visits twice a month. The life insurance money was frozen and placed in a trust for Lucas's future with me as trustee. Sarah was ordered to pay child support from her share of David's estate. Sarah was furious. You can't do this. I'm his mother. You're an unfit mother, the judge said. Mrs. Chen has proven with overwhelming evidence that you neglected your son, spent recklessly, engaged in infidelity, and attempted to alienate the child from his grandmother immediately after his father's death. Custody is awarded to Mrs. Chen. Sarah tried to appeal. Her appeal was denied. She tried to regain custody 3 more times over the next year. Each time, I presented more evidence of her unfitness, and each time she lost. Eventually, Sarah moved to another state with her boyfriend and stopped requesting even her supervised visits. She effectively abandoned Lucas. Lucas is now 10 years old and has lived with me for 2 years. He's thriving. His grades improved. He's in therapy to process his father's death and his mother's abandonment. He plays soccer, has friends, and finally feels safe. The life insurance money is invested for his college education. I used David's estate to buy a bigger house near Lucas's school. Everything David wanted for his son is being protected. I'm 68 years old. I'm a retired family court judge. I'm a grandmother who lost her only child. And I'm the woman who used 35 years of legal expertise to save my grandson from his toxic mother. Sarah thought my age made me weak. She didn't know I'd spent decades protecting children in the very court system she tried to manipulate. She underestimated me because I'm an elderly widow. She learned that retirement doesn't erase expertise. Lucas asks me sometimes, "Grandma, why doesn't Mom want to see me?" Because some people care more about themselves than about being parents, I tell him. But I will always be here for you. That's what your dad wanted. David would be proud. His son is safe. His mother protected his legacy. And Sarah lost everything because she tried to manipulate a woman who wrote the book on family court custody cases. The end.